to another edition of Grandstanders Live. I'm your host, Scott Kerman, and I'm joined by my usual cohort, the Professor, Russ Stevens. Well, Russie boy, we have another great show for you tonight, so let's get it started. First of all, we missed you the last few weeks.
I know. I'm glad to be back. There's a lot going down, right?
Oh, my God, absolutely. All right, we go to the Celtics, and, we have threads going back and forth with the boys, Uncle Joe, Timmy, Russ, and last night in the first half, you were done. You were ready to go golfing this summer and forget the Celtics. And then Jason Tatum decided to take over.
It was really, in the end, I think, Scotty, it was probably the only way they were going to win that game was for Tatum to go on a binge, right? Like it just looked. One of the indicators I use in a first quarter or half of a basketball game is, if a team has shot very poorly but is still close, like within 6 or 8 points, usually bad things are going to happen because they're going to regress upwards. They're going to shoot better.
Yeah.
Like, teams don't shoot 23% for a game. That just doesn't happen in the NBA.
Right.
And last night just looked on every level that Washington was going to get hot. They were going to start to shoot better. And the fact that the Celtics were only up by 6 or 8 points early, it looked like a 20-point loss to me. And then Tatum went off.
Yeah, Beal and Westbrook had low numbers in the first half. Look, they just plod along. They really, it's like they just introduced themselves to each other sometimes. It's a weird sense that they're just kind of like, they're like a racehorse. They're just happy to go with the pack, and they'll fall off at the end and be fine with the results.
Yeah, if they were professional cyclists, they would be in the peloton and be happy to be in the peloton, right?
Yeah.
Happy to be there, not going to win, but just setting it up for everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Exactly. It was interesting at halftime. And of course, the TNT crew, they're incredible. They're off the charts. But Barkley starts looking at the lineup, trying to do some analysis about the Celtics and what they need as far as the shooter goes. He starts looking at the roster. He's got nothing. He's just looking at the roster. He doesn't even have one name to spit out there and say, if this guy could energize the team, if he could get hot, beyond, of course, Tatum and Walker. And he couldn't even give the energy to say Marcus Smart anymore. Marcus Smart, Russ, who's phoning it in?
Yeah, I mean, he just looks like, I have a pretty evolved opinion on Marcus Smart at this point in time. I would put Marcus Smart in the same category of Kevin Youkilis, is a guy who has worked his ass off. Like, I don't think there's been any question over the course of his young career that he works hard. He's not an elite athlete. And once these guys who work really hard lose any of their athleticism, they lose 5%, they're done. And because players who have elite athleticism, Jaylen Brown can lose 5%, 10%, 15% of his athleticism eventually and still be effective. Youkilis, once he lost that 5%, once he lost that edge, he was done. He went off a cliff. And I'm worried that Smart is really on the edge of that cliff right now. And for him to continue to, really perform, his body's going to break. And I think we're seeing it,
Yeah, he seems to be injured during the course of the game, every game. The fact is that he's not a shooter. And I want to first of all, that's a great comparison. I will also compare Isaiah Thomas. The moment Isaiah Thomas had injury, he was small. He's a guy who played hard and stuff.
Right.
He could never come back. But if Danny Ainge was offered the second pick in the draft for Marcus Smart and the first round pick, and that's what I had heard rumors early, during the draft, that may have been the case, and he didn't take that. That's a fireable offense.
Yeah, I mean, who knows if it happened? I mean, there's a lot of funny rumors and things that get floated after the fact.
But Marcus Smart's value, Russ, was never higher.
Never higher, because he has a good contract and he is coming off a pretty good year.
Yeah.
He didn't do much in the playoffs, but he was coming off a good year, and he's regressed, and he's not as valuable. He's got an expiring contract going into next year. He's still probably the most tradable piece on the team, but you're not going to get the kind of value, you're never more valuable than 2 years to 18 months from your contract being up. And they've passed that mark. He's now 12 months from his contract being up.
Yeah.
So, and as for the other guys, Fournier is hot or cold. He's a streaky shooter, and he's not had a history of performing well in the playoffs. If he does not perform well in these playoffs, his value is going to be tamped down. You may be able to re-sign him. I think in the end, I think they should only be bringing back one of Kemba, Smart, and Fournier. I think that's in the end. That's what I would be looking to do, is move 2 of the 3.
Would you blow this team up?
Well, depends on what you mean by blowing it up.
Jalen,
yeah,
Jason Tatum.
I would put every single.
Push the rest of them out to the sea.
Yeah, I not push them out to the sea. I would make every one of them available. I think you started recognizing it before the rest of us did. Nesmith is a player. He works his ass off. He's shooting better. I'd like to hold on to him. But if someone offered something of value for him, would I move him? I would. Everybody on that team, other than Jalen and Jason, I think should be available.
And at the very least, half roster turnover.
I would think so. Yeah. I mean, absolute positive minimum 4 and up to 6 to 7. At some point in time, you just are trading to make trades. Like, you should be able to differentiate. You like to hang on to Nesmith. You'd like to hang on to Pritchard. Rob Williams just looks like he's another one of those injury prone guys.
He does. He does look like that, right? He just looks like a guy that just shows you getting rid of Tice. That was a terrible move.
It was a terrible move. I wasn't against it. At the time, I was kind of happy that this meant that Williams was going to get 25 minutes a night, and then Williams proved he can't handle. I mean, the guy can't handle 25 minutes a night. He's a 20-minute a night player. But
there was no upside of getting rid of Tice at that point.
Other than to create, I mean, it was luxury tax, so save the owner some money, and left more room for Brad to play Rob Williams, but it didn't pan out. I mean, in retrospect, turned out to be a mistake. I would have rather have attached a draft pick to Thompson and kept Tice.
All right. If Brad Stevens were to go, I have the guy who's going to replace him. We talked about the last few weeks. You mentioned it has to be a former player.
I think so.
Celtics like to have former Celtics if possible. The perfect fit for Jason Tatum right now is somebody who's a greater player than Jason Tatum. And it's 2 letters. It's KG.
If you could get KG to coach, which I don't think you could, I think you'd have to throw player money at him. That would be
right. Absolutely. I'm talking about if you gave him a 4-year deal at $50 million total.
Yeah, I mean, you'd probably, it's a great idea if you paired KG with a very, very experienced assistant coach.
Right.
Exactly. I mean, so where you're not necessarily asking KG to draw up after timeout calls on a whiteboard on the sideline.
No.
But you're using KG as a Doc Rivers kind of guy. I mean, he wouldn't even be able to coach like Doc can coach for 3 years, right? Like it would take him that long. But as in charge of locker room motivation, methodology, absolutely.
Working the referee,
absolutely,
keeping the law right, and a guy that might be able to get to Jason Tatum.
Yeah.
Which is very important right now because it's Jason Tatum's team. We really have never had this in the Boston Celtics in our lifetime. A guy that could lead the league in scoring and a guy who puts up 40 and 50 a night and that we're completely dependent on. Obviously, Jalen's not here right now, but completely dependent on for our success. It's weird to watch a game like that.
It is. You're right in that we typically haven't had that on the Celtics. They've all been more collaborative efforts, right? Bird was the first among equals, right? Because you had McHale and Parrish and DJ, right? There was never that kind of reliance on Bird because McHale was, by his side, maybe other than his first year. So, I mean, that would be phenomenal. I don't think KG would do it. He probably doesn't have the disposition, but it would be phenomenal if he did.
And if you you want to shoot up to number one interest in this town, bring KG in, because the KG years here were so incredible.
Yeah, I listened to a couple of podcasts lately, and well, you guys know I had, I was at a dinner table with Doc a couple of years ago for hour and a half, 2 hours, and the stories that he told about KG were just off the charts. He said he was just not wired like anyone else that he'd ever met. He tried to move. Doc said he tried to move practice. All the sports docs were saying you should be practicing at like 1 in the afternoon instead of 10 in the morning. Every single one of them. And he got Paul Pierce to go along with it. He got Ray Allen to go along with it. And KG told him to go F himself, that there was no possible way. And that just shut the whole conversation down.
Yeah, he's the man. All right, we got it. We have the Nets series. I assume that game 3 that Kyrie Irving will come to the Boston Garden. And that should, I don't know about the timing, but fans, full capacity May 29th. I'm thinking that it's going to be full capacity with Kyrie there if he shows up. Is it an interesting series, or are we going to get swept?
I think we'll win a game because the Nets will get bored, or one of those guys will get hurt, or Kyrie won't want to come back to Boston. Like he'll come down he'll have a sore Achilles in the fourth quarter of game 2. They'll be up 2-0, and Kyrie will just decide, I'm not going to put myself through it and not come. I mean, it's possible. But I think if you got 2 games, it would be a moral victory. I don't want to be swept. That would be a disappointment. One game would be like, all right, we got 1 game. We didn't completely embarrass ourselves.
Yeah, if you got to game 6, that'd be incredible.
It would be incredible. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially with this current roster. All right, we're going to go to the Bruins. We have to. They're in the playoffs, tied 1-1. First of all, we're all about superstars in sports. Brad Marchand showed again why he is an absolute superstar, a Hall of Famer. When it was time to bury a shot in overtime, he didn't wait.
Yeah, you saw the difference. You sent the text. DeBrusque had to bury it. I wrote back, rolling puck. But the difference between Jake DeBrusque and Brad Marchand was the difference between burying the goal for Marchand and putting the puck into the glove for DeBrusque. I mean, he literally shot it into Craig Anderson's glove.
Yeah, right. Marchand, he's really, I've warmed up to him over the years because I didn't really like that whole kind of sideshow Bob act. He's cleaned it up a lot.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden now you realize what a talented guy he is. And he's just a very smart hockey player. And that's what I appreciate the most.
I think he's legitimately a top 3, top 5 at his position in the NHL. I mean, he's probably top 10 in the MVP this year. Maybe top 7.
Has been for a number of years, right?
I mean, so he's that level, and it's just still sort of odd because he came in as being so unheralded, and he was just like this little, maybe he'd be a Ken Linsman type character, right? An irritant who'd get 10 years in the league and lead the league in suspensions and penalty minutes. And as it turned out, he's a highly skilled player.
And he gets his number retired in the rafters?
Oh, yeah. All Bergeron, Marchand, if Pasternak, starts to perform in the playoffs and continues this pace, he would. That line is incredible.
And of course, Chara. All right, look, Caps have injuries up and down the lineup. Of course, at goalie, they've got a 40-year-old Ederson. This is a team the Bruins should beat in 6 games.
You would hope so, especially with the backup to the backup goaltender and the injuries that they have. It wasn't long ago that the Capitals had the Bruins number as fiercely as any other team did, and that's kind of softened over the last year or 2. You need your best players to play well. Pasternak made that nice play when he handed the puck and set up that first goal the other night, but he's got to take advantage of his chances. If he does not get untracked, it's going to open the door for these guys.
Capitals are so much bigger than the Bruins.
Yeah.
It's frightening. Ovechkin, here's a guy that, he's such on the back end of his career, but he's like Gordie Howe on steroids, right? He just looks like an the Grizzly veteran. He can hardly move out there, but he's just ready to smack anyone who comes near him.
Oh, yeah. Look, Ovechkin's one of those guys where you hate him when he's on another team, and you would love him to be on the Bruins. Love him to be on the Bruins.
Yeah, I
Right?
like watching Ovechkin play, and
Yeah.
it's a fun series. The Capitals are, to me, a real likable team in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And of course, we love Washington D.C., which home of here.
For another 5 days.
Yeah,
And
oh, is
we
that
pick
right?
her up. Yeah, we pick her up on Monday. Drive her home from DC on Tuesday.
Oh
So
my God, it just
no
seems like
longer home.
yesterday that she
I
got
know.
accepted.
I
I
know.
know. God bless her.
Yeah,
All
no,
right.
it's great series. It feels like it's going 6 or 7, right? Like there's
Yeah,
no, yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it feels like it's, look, Tuca, every goal that Tuca's given up has been a deflection. Okay, maybe he should have handled,
yeah,
one. You had mentioned one that was, you felt
right.
like pretty soft, but I felt like he's handled everything he's had to do.
Yeah, you can't blame you can't blame the loss on him, and you can't. But he's not standing on his head either. He's probably going to need a game where he completely stands on his head,
And
and then
wins
he,
the game. Yeah.
yeah, and wins the game. He's going to need that. That's what they're going to need in term. They can't be giving up 3 or 4 goals a night. Period.
No, no. And Bruce Cassidy, I just love him as a coach. It just seems like he has complete control of the roster and the whole game management. He doesn't yell too much at the referees, but they seem to be receptive
Yep.
when he does.
Yeah, and he knows how to light a fire under his guys without really torching them, right? So everyone knew when after game one where what he was talking about, which was that first line needed to play better, and he's definitely gotten into DeBrusk's ear again for the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if he, and moving guys around so that Coyle, he knows how to motivate guys. And it's not, if they lose, it's not going to be because of him. That is for damn sure.
Well, Rusty boy, Cassidy, Brad Stevens, very similar in age, I assume. I haven't checked their age. You just wish that Stevens had a little more of Cassidy in him.
I think so. I think these guys, the NBA coaches have to be so careful, because the fact of the matter is, every very good to great NBA player is essentially a free agent every year, because they can force their way out of town almost at any time until at least 1 year after, maybe you get 1 year grace period after they sign a contract. So these NBA coaches just tiptoe around, but Brad needs to be sending messages, and I don't know what he's doing in private or in the locker room, but he certainly doesn't use the public channels to send those messages like Cassidy does.
Right. And he doesn't work the referees at all. I just want to mention that. And he's never going to. I've been waiting 8 years for him to get a call for the referees. Doc Rivers gets like 3 or 4 a night.
He may not be the right, he's a very good coach. He just may not be the right coach for this team. And Bill Fitch won a championship and was gone 2 years later because he wasn't the right coach for that team. He was a great coach. He got hired right away, but he wasn't the best coach for the 83 Celtics.
And you and I both loved Bill Fitch. I mean, that's what I know. It was a great coach.
It took Casey to come in to get the most out of that team for the rest of that run.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a great comparison. All right, go to the Boston Red Sox, 25-18. I'm very happy with how everything has, as far as the team, the way the starting pitching has performed. Everybody on the starting lineup that I thought would perform has done that. The holes are very glaring, which is great. They have, and it seems like in the minor leagues, they have guys who could replace them. But it all starts with the star of the team and the leader of the team. And he was the leader of the team when Mookie Betts was here. I don't care what anyone said, and I've been saying it's Xander Bogaerts.
Yeah, he's taken that step up. That's the step up that we need Jason Tatum to take, right? Like is the step up that Xander has taken. And I think he is the leader. As he goes, they go. And he can, guy like him can smooth a lot of bumps, in the road, right? Where the highs don't get too high and the lows don't get too low. And I think Cora is like that too, where Cora doesn't go into red alert when they lose a couple of games. And what I give this team credit for is a couple times they've wavered and they've bounced back. They've gotten off the mat after taking a couple of shots.
Yeah, we saw Xander, a close game about 10 days ago on first base, yelling at Devers. to get this going, to do something, and then Devers end up doing that. And that just showed me, okay, we give Cora a lot of credit for Devers. We give Cora a lot of credit for Erod. We need to start giving credit to Xander.
Yeah, I think he's there.
Affecting some of these younger players.
I think he's there. I do. I think he's reached that level of. I think he's. And I'd say Bergeron. You'd want Bogarts to become Bergeron, right? Like there's a line, right? You want Tatum to become more like Bogarts, and you want Bogarts to have the staying power that Bergeron, has had, where he's just consistent year in and year out. Same type of guys.
All right. Well, the question I asked last week, you weren't here. Will Chaim Bloom mortgage the future this year? With the whole premise, Russ, that there isn't a great team this year, an uber team.
Right.
The Dodgers have been an uber team for a while. They only have one World Series title, but they've been a huge team.
Yeah.
There's no great team right now, it looks like, in Major League Baseball. You may have a chance to get in there. This could be a 2013 year.
Right.
We're not the best team in baseball, but we end up having a World Series title. Would you mortgage some of the assets that he has created in a short period of time to fill some gaps and go for it?
So the question you're essentially asking is, would you move Tristan Cassis to fill a gap in the outfield? Like, would you move Cassis?
I would not go your best prospect.
Okay.
Would you go?
So I would not move him for that. But would I go down the line? Would I move Jeter Downs to fill a hole in right field, and with a guy, not a rental? Like, I would not do that for a rental, but with a young guy but was really good for a couple of years and put a package together around Jeter Downs, I'd do that.
Like a Trevor Story out of the Colorado, something like that.
Yeah, I don't know enough about contracts and stuff in Major League Baseball like I know them in the NBA, but like for a young or middle-aged, proven player who you have a couple of years on his contract, would I move a couple of those guys? Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. I think that's a big decision, because I think the Red Sox are built for next year to truly compete. Because when you think about Duran taking center field,
right.
Tristan Cassis, who is the number one prospect and has just been remarkable on the Sea Dogs. Have you watched any clips of him play?
I haven't watched the clips, but I read the article. I think it was today. He's just on a tear. I think he's 11 for 22, and his OPS is like over 2,000 in the last week.
He's huge. Yeah. He's actually a huge man with a beautiful swing. He's your first baseman. All of a sudden. Now, I don't know what you do with Bobby Dalbec. Maybe you move him. Maybe what you ever do. And then if Jeter Downs becomes your second baseman, now all of a sudden this seems like the lineup of the future in 2022.
Right.
Do you just just roll the ball out there and just see what happens with the current roster?
What I think he will do, I think he will protect those assets, and I think he'll find something at the margins. They may try Duran in center field this year. That may be sort of a trade, a new asset. They may move a couple guys. I don't think he's gonna move one of the top 5 prospects, but would I'd consider it, but I don't think he's going to. I don't think they're going to do that.
What do you think about this whole seasoning thing? Okay, when Duran hits home runs in Worcester, and we have Frenchie freaking Cordero there striking out every time, do you sit there and go, he could hit these home runs here at Fenway just as well? The other leagues don't do this. It seems like there's always the steps these guys have to take. When we know, why are they taking these steps? Why isn't Duran right now in the Major League roster?
Well, I think there's two things. One, at least in the past, they've been somewhat petrified, I think, of a guy getting, basically having such a bad experience that he gets PTSD, right? And really sets his development back. I don't think that's as much of an issue. I actually think the issue is play at service time. You know this better than anyone. You're the service time guy. How many years until I think they delay these guys however many games, 40 games into the year. So that doesn't count as a year of service.
Right, but now he can come up. He can come up now.
Pretty soon, yeah. So look, my guess is they want to get him a couple hundred at bats. Just be missed last year for the most part. Fine tune some things, but if they had an injury, if Verdugo went out for 3 weeks, I think they'd bring him up.
Yeah, because it just and again, I don't like that. I don't think I think at some point the lights, the shining lights, is what these guys need. And we've seen guys like Travis Shaw, who was a better player in the major league level than he was in minor leagues. Look, I would bring Duran up, see how he works out, because you're getting such little production from Renfroe and Cordero. And Verdugo is a very nice player, but it feels like he's that 280, 20 home run. He's basically Trot Nixon number-wise.
Yeah. You're going to need another stud in the outfield, right? Like you're going to need to pair Verdugo with, and Duran's probably that guy. And I think then we're in business at that point in time, right? You're strong up the middle with Vasquez, Bogarts, hopefully Jeter Downs. You got Devers. It's just, it's exciting. I think it's going to be exciting. So I would be careful if I were Chaim. Look, we don't know. This series with Toronto is a good is going to be a good litmus test. We've not played a string of great teams, and we played a lot of the Orioles, the Tigers. We need to see some good teams, and can they start to beat these teams? Because we may be looking at a 90-win team, which isn't bad, but there's a big difference between a 90-win and a 97 or 8-win team.
Yeah, it just, again, I always use the horse race analogy. It just kind of feels like they're all starting to creep up a little bit. And, look, some of the best teams in the American League are in American League East. Tampa, the Toronto, and the Yankees, and now the Red Sox are four of the top 8 teams in the American League for sure, right? Yep. And not all of them are going to make the playoffs, most likely. So needless to say, the Red Sox can't afford a 6-7 game losing streak where they can find themselves closer to Baltimore than they are to the top.
That is a really, really good point. This is a team that cannot afford to lose probably even 5 straight. You lose 5 straight, and it just may take you too long to make it back. And then your margin for error goes down with respect to injury and everything else.
Yeah. All right, go to the Patriots. I don't understand the Brian Hoyer deal. I have to go to the professor for knowledge. Explain.
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. Let's assume that he could just be a camp fodder. I doubt it, because you could have gotten anybody for that. I think he's there to tutor Mac Jones, and any one of 3 things can happen. If Mac Jones looks like he can start, the year, then I think they'll move Cam and have it be, basically Mac Jones and Hoyer with Stidham maybe on the practice squad or something like that. If Mac Jones can't start, then they'll cut Stidham. They'll start Newton, and Hoyer will be just assigned to get Mac Jones ready to play football as fast as possible.
Oh, that's very interesting. I think Newton stays because I think he has plans for Newton, like I spoke about.
You could be right.
3 to 5 plays a game on short yard situations, red zone situations, where he's thinking that Cam Newton would be a perfect fit for. So
you're right. But I think he's there. I think one of those 2 guys is gone. I think it's most likely Stidham.
Yeah, I think that's Stidham. I think that Stidham's the loser out of that.
I think so. But unless Mac Jones just blows everyone away and he's like, that's my starting quarterback, and I don't want Cam Newton, hovering over this kid's head, right?
Yeah, I just think, I think if Mac Jones shows anything, he's the starting quarterback game 1. I think that, if you remember, Belichick wanted to start Tom Brady to begin that season, the first season. He only did it because he didn't know what to do with Drew. Drew was obviously so popular in this town, but Tom Brady was his guy early on too. I think he hasn't had to make a quarterback decision like this in 20 years. It finally came up for him. I'm sure he remembers it. And I think if he's the future. Why not throw him in there against
Yeah,
Miami?
I hope he does. I hope he shows enough to do that, to earn the job.
Okay, hearing rumors that Dante Hightower may retire. I'm not surprised.
Oh, I haven't heard
I
that.
heard a couple of them yesterday that
Interesting.
look, he has a huge cap hit, Russ.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
It would
I hope he doesn't. I hope he doesn't retire. I really hope he doesn't. Yeah.
but most likely he does, though. I think it's really tough for an old guy like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Boy, now you got me worried.
Oh, really?
Now you get, well, that I think he's a key. I think that's having him back, calling plays in the middle of that defense is a huge deal. Huge deal.
Patriots have the slowest wide receiving core in football. I don't feel like their job is done right.
Oh, I don't know. Like, I think Bourne and I think
no, actually they have
Oh, did they really?
They have a statistic that they're the slowest wide receiving core when it takes account they're 40 times and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think it's about the tight ends. That to me is what this is about. This is about
I'm saying I think there's still one big acquisition.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I wouldn't mind seeing it.
Julio Jones, right?
We'll know soon enough.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's our show for tonight. Want to thank, of course, Corbin behind the scenes. Want to thank, of course, the professor. Please check us out on our website at thegrandstanders.com and tune in again next Wednesday night at 6:30 for another edition of Grandstanders Live. I'm your host, Scott Kerman. Have a great and happy night.